This is how we ride. This is how we do.
You know, here's what I'm saying is like, if a dirt guy like Bobby Pierce, who almost won the Eldora race, goes into trucks and almost wins, you don't hear nothing about it. And even our own fan base, we think it's cool, but if a NASCAR guy comes over to dirt and makes the A main, you know, the excuses are out the window. Look what they did to Steve Kinser. You know?
Yeah.
Steve Kinser
Yep.
got smear campaigned. He got smear campaigned.
I guarantee
They
it.
put him in an experimental car with Kenny Bernstein. First 6 races ever, Cup Series. They didn't Haley Deegan him. 10 years of development or whatever. They took him straight from a dirt sprint car and threw his ass in a stock car and said, go.
Yeah, there ain't no doubt.
And then after 6 races, kicked him out and said he was a bum, embarrassed him in front of the world. Go back to your dirt racing. Why is it so much of a big deal to be a badass sprint car or NASCAR driver versus being a badass sprint car racing? Sprint car racing's more difficult
he literally
than
won
NASCAR.
Yeah, and this guy won IROC races. Like, it's, this deal's listen, man, nothing's fair in life. I could imagine a AAA baseball player or single A is getting the same thing we're all getting here.
But you're not single A, sir. That's what I mean. A fucking super late model and a 410 sprint car ain't no triple A. You can't come down. Triple A is considered not just smaller in awareness, but lower in competition and ability to perform. So that's why I joked with you and said Lewis Hamilton would be the favorite because the world views you as AAA, and anyone in the Major League Baseball organization can come to AAA and instantly wax ass on everybody.
Well, and so
that's not
here's
true.
The thing,
you can't do that.
No, it's not true. But here's the thing: what'll happen with our deal?
It's more so
and
UFC to boxing. It's UFC to boxing. It's a completely other sport.
Well, yeah. Well, listen. Here's the crazy thing. So it'll never happen. Probably, as I race and retire and move on with things in my life, sooner or later, the right promoter or the right guy, I don't know who he is, will make light of this whole deal and take all of this craziness that we keep talking about, the Donnie Schatzes, the Kinsers, myself, my dad, whoever. I mean, JD, and say, you know what we're going to do right now? We're going to take this guy and we're moving him up, or, not when I say moving him up, not for him, but for the people that know nothing. Like, there's a lot of people in this world that don't know a lot of things, whether it's racing, anything else in life. And then they're just hoping for a show. You put this JD in at a Daytona or wherever, and you put him in the right car, and next thing you know, it's a Cinderella story, which is what we all love to see. And somehow we need to figure out, how do we do all this without the fact is it's going to cost him all of the money he's ever made in his life to do it. So I don't know who that is.
I would rather, let's say that cost is to put JD in a cup car. Say we're going to rent an extra car from Hendrick. Let's be logical about what we would have to do. We'd have to rent an external Hendrick car. And let's just say that cost would be around $20 million. To put that together, 10 million,
could be
20. Let's say 10 million.
Name your number,
let's say
right?
That's a low number. 10 million. Somebody's jumped in and sponsored, but let's say it's 10 million. Me personally, if I'm looking out for JD and Tim McCready's awareness, I'm taking that 10 million and I'm buying 4 Super Bowl commercials and putting 30-second spots of fucking super late model racing, putting on a damn show, a cinematic fucking Dirt Media Co. style show, advertisement for you, and then all of a sudden, everybody knows what a fucking late model is.
Yeah, the problem...
I would rather take $10 million and be a commercial in the Super Bowl. It's $2 million for a 30-second slot.
Yeah.
I'd rather put you for 30 seconds in front of the fucking world if you want to change the sport more so than go to try to be a NASCAR driver.
Well, Well, I'll tell you this: you're not wrong on the end of it, because so when I left NASCAR in 2007, I had this 3-year contract, and the way those contracts work, it renews every year, so they don't have to honor it after the year. Which I don't know none of this when I went down there because I was very naive, and so I talked with Richard a little bit. As he didn't say that I was done yet, but I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, hey man, look at. What do we got there? So then he's like, well, we're going to run Bobby Labonte at Daytona. And I had already tested at Daytona, and that little Busch car was really good. And I said to him, I said, hey, not for nothing, but if I sit on the pole at Daytona, because that's how good this car is, we went down there and tested in single car runs. It was by far the best car there, and I'm not doing anything. Like, a trained monkey can drive a car around Daytona when you're by yourself.
It's so easy, isn't it?
Yeah, anybody can do it. So this car is so fast. I says, if I go down there and set the pole, maybe somebody, a corporate guy, is excited, yada, yada. I said, but if Bobby Labonte
Cinderella story.
Yeah, if Bobby Labonte goes down there and does it, I said, he's already a Cup champ twice.
Right.
I said, he's just Bobby Labonte. And he's like, well, I promised him this, and we're going to get the car sponsored. So all this goes away. So I go home, and my dad's like, look at, we're going to raise a bunch of money up because I want you to race. I'm like, look at Dad, what do you want to do? So we talk about how much money we could raise up together. So then all the Childress guys that worked in the shop were great guys. Some of the guys are still there today. Some of them moved on. They were like, hey, listen, if you want to get involved in this, we'll get you the right car. We'll sell them to you.
Were any of the shop guys like on your side where they were like, fuck this is bullshit.
Listen,
they're not letting you run this car. Was anybody on your side? Shop guys are cool.
Nobody ever says like, F, all that stuff. Here's what I'll tell you about when I was at Childress. The day I left, there was three dudes that had their picture up when you walked in the Busch shop. I'm dating myself because it was still Busch back then. It was Scott Wimmer, Clint Boyer, Kevin Harvick, and me had all of our pictures up at this. No, I only ended up running 6 Busch races total, but I feel like in my heart of hearts that Richard wanted it to work. It didn't work. It was just timing.
But you're
whatever.
Telling me you thought you could sit on the pole at the Daytona 500 and that opportunity was taken from you. If you do that, your whole life could have changed.
Well, I just know that like back in the day, it always seemed like me as an outsider looking in that a rookie was always like in the last decade. I mean, how many times has a rookie sat on the pole at Daytona in a Cup car? Probably like half of them or more. Whether it was Danica, whether it was Tony Stewart, whether it was Matt Kenseth, whether it was, go through the list. Like, it's like all of a sudden a rookie's on the front row at Daytona almost every year. Like, and I'm not saying it's crazy, but it's crazy all at the same time.
Well, qualifying trim. The explanation would be like the guys are just setting the car to qualify, not race. You got to impound the car now, but you're saying you had an opportunity though, and it was taken from you.
Well, I'm just saying when you go back and look at the times of that car, that Kevin Harvick had run that car the year before. That car was amazing, and it was single car runs was the fastest car there. I'm not gonna say I was the fastest driver there. The car was I drove it, but it was the fastest car there. So there's a good chance, and you go back to Daytona, you're going to be up front. But so the crazy thing about NASCAR, and I'm sure a lot of guys will tell you the same thing. Guys that have tried it, like you could probably talk to David Gravel. He's done some of it. You get this money behind you. And so, like, my dad he's like, we can raise all this up. We'll call every favor we had in from all of our family members, all of our racing family, the whole deal. And so at the end of the day, we probably could have run 7 or 8 races and had a very good team because the guy that built the motors at Childress was going to build his own motor, even though he's going to take all those parts. And if it blew up, but it's going to be a badass motor right to the level. All this stuff was going to be like as good as you could get it. But the kicker is, what if I would have won? Would it mattered? Would it have mattered if I went to Michigan and won a race with a bought car? Back in the day when David Gilliland did it, it mattered. But if you look at that team that David Gilliland had, that wasn't no small-time team. That was a multi-million-dollar owner. That's the last guy in my mind that has gone in there that looked like, quote-unquote, a privateer that maybe made something out of it.
Well, but you still would have sat on the pole as Tim McCready.
I might have with Richard Childress, but just imagine if I did all this stuff and spent everybody's money, like my money, my dad's money, whoever else we were friends with for 35 years, and then we got lucky. Say we got lucky and won a race, and then everybody else down there didn't really care. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't hire you. They're like, oh, you won that race, big deal. We move on with our life. Like, well, you take JD, you put him in this car, say he wins a race, and they don't care anyways. We spent all this money, they don't care. It's kind of like, don't focus on it. Like honestly, like JD's younger than me, and there's a lot of young kids. If they can't get there, and you got to spend all the money you got to get there, and they don't care anyways, why would you waste it? You know what I'm saying?
Right. And honestly, when you say all this, I mean, it's like, if anyone does have $2 million and you're thinking of renting a truck for a season, which I'm sure they've dropped in price because nobody wants to go to NASCAR anymore, just take that $2 million and do like a personal commercial for the chili, or for your career during the Super Bowl, because that sounds like a lot better money. You know, a lot more bang for your buck.
This is how we ride, this is how we do. Riding mud, sliding up higher in the